It started with a smell, not a strong one, just a faint, sweet scent coming off the water in Turbidity Basin 4, like almonds or maybe cheap candy. Arthur Webb paused. He lowered his clipboard. He took a breath. It shouldn't smell like that. Water treatment is chemistry, and chemistry doesn't smell like almonds unless something is very, very wrong. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. The rest of Millbrook was asleep. The mayor was asleep. The school board was asleep. But Arthur was awake, standing under the buzzing fluorescent lights, staring at a liquid that was about to poison 8,400 people. His name was Arthur Webb, 32 years old. Lived in the same house his grandmother left him on the edge of Millbrook, population 8,400. Worked night shifts at the water treatment plant. The kind of job people forgot existed until something went wrong. And Arthur? He was the kind of person people forgot existed, period. If you saw him at the grocery store, you wouldn't remember. If he sat next to you at a diner, you'd keep scrolling your phone. He had that quality, that invisibility that comes from being quiet in a world that rewards loud. Glasses, old hoodie, kept his head down. The town didn't dislike him, they just didn't see him. But Arthur saw everything. And if you're watching this, hit that subscribe button right now, because what Arthur noticed in those water samples is something that could happen in any town, anywhere, and most people would miss it until it was way too late. 3 days before everything changed, Arthur was running his usual tests. Tuesday night, 11 p.m. The treatment plant hummed in that low, mechanical way that becomes white noise after a while. He was alone, which was normal. Everyone else worked days. He pulled a sample from intake valve 7, held it up to the light. Something in the turbidity reading felt off. Not dangerously off, just different. Most people would have ignored it, chalked it up to rainfall, sediment, seasonal variation. Arthur didn't ignore things. He ran the test again. Same result. He logged it. Took another sample from a different valve. Also off. Not by much, but enough. He called his supervisor at midnight. Got voicemail. Left a message. Detailed, specific. Probably too long. He knew how he sounded. He'd heard the jokes. Arthur and his spreadsheets. Arthur and his protocols. They said it like it was a bad thing, being thorough, like caring too much was some kind of character flaw. Wednesday, he came in early, even though his shift didn't start until 10 p.m. Ran more tests. The numbers were climbing. Still within acceptable range, technically, but the pattern was wrong. He pulled up historical data going back 6 months, overlaid the graphs. There it was, a deviation that shouldn't exist. He called his supervisor again. This time he answered. Arthur, I got your message. Look, the readings are still in range. We don't need to panic over every little fluctuation. But the trend is fine. You're doing great work, man, but sometimes you gotta trust the system. If it goes over threshold, we'll deal with it. Arthur wanted to argue, wanted to explain that by the time it went over threshold, it might be too late. But he didn't, because he learned a long time ago that when you're the person everyone calls overly cautious, your concerns get dismissed before you finish saying them. He hung up, sat there in the fluorescent hum of the control room, stared at the numbers. And here's the thing about Arthur that nobody in Millbrook understood. He wasn't just good at his job, he was obsessed with it. Not in a healthy way maybe, but in a way that happens when you don't have much else. No girlfriend, no close friends, no weekend plans that didn't involve reorganizing his data logs or reading EPA bulletins for fun. The water system was his life, and something was poisoning it.
Make sure you hit that like button, because what Arthur does next is exactly what any of us would want someone to do if our town was in danger, even if nobody believes them. Thursday morning, he didn't sleep. He drove to the watershed, took samples himself, drove to 3 different points along the river, came back to the plant, ran chromatography tests he wasn't technically authorized to run, and there it was. Benzene, trace amounts, but rising. And something else. An industrial solvent he had to look up. Trichloroethylene, used in manufacturing, degreasing. It was in the water. And it was coming from upstream. He called the county health department, got transferred 4 times, finally reached someone who said they'd look into it but needed him to file a formal report. He filed it. Immediately. Sent it with all his data, charts, graphs, highlighted sections. Nobody called him back. Friday afternoon, he went to the mayor's office, waited an hour. got 10 minutes with an assistant who took notes and said the mayor was very concerned, but was currently at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new community center. Could he come back Monday? Arthur tried to explain that Monday might be too late. The assistant smiled the way people smile when they want you to leave, so he left. He sat in his car in the parking lot and did something he never did. He cried, not because people were mean to him. He was used to that, but because he was watching his town drink poisoned water, and nobody would listen because the person trying to warn them was someone they'd spent years training themselves not to hear. That night, Arthur didn't go to work. He drove to the industrial park on the north edge of town. There were 3 factories there: textiles, machine parts, chemical processing. He walked the perimeter. It was after midnight. Cold. His breath fogged in the air. Behind the chemical plant, he found it. A drainage pipe. Not on any map he'd seen. It was discharging directly into a tributary that fed the river. He took a sample. He scrambled down the embankment. Mud ruined his shoes, but he didn't care. He dipped a sample jar into the runoff. The water was warm. Think about that. It's November. The river should be 40 degrees. This was bath water warm and oily. It coated the glass of the jar with a film that reflected the moonlight like a sick rainbow. He didn't just call the agency this time. He didn't just send an email. He drove straight to the police station, 3 a.m. The desk sergeant looked at him. Muddy shoes, messy hair, holding a jar of dirty water like it was a grenade. "You can't be back here, Arthur," the sergeant said. "Smell it," Arthur said. He slammed the jar on the counter. "Just smell it." The sergeant hesitated, unscrewed the lid, sniffed. His face changed. He capped it immediately. "Okay," he said. "Okay, sit down." The sergeant made a call, not to the chemical plant, to the county sheriff. But things move slow in a small town on a weekend. Too slow. Arthur knew he couldn't wait for bureaucracy, so he called the only other person who might listen. He met with a reporter from the Millbrook Gazette an hour later. Young guy. Sounded skeptical. He asked if Arthur had any proof. Arthur handed over 40 pages of data. The reporter frowned, saying he'd need to verify it with an independent lab. Did Arthur understand that? Making accusations against a local employer was serious. Arthur understood. He understood that everyone thought he was overreacting. That everyone thought he was the boy who cried wolf. Except he'd never cried wolf before. And this was a wolf. And it was already inside the house. Sunday morning, people started getting sick. Not everyone. Just some. Headaches. Nausea. A few kids with stomach problems. Nothing that screamed emergency. Nothing that made anyone connect the dots. Just enough to fill up a few waiting rooms and have doctors scratching their heads.
Arthur saw the posts on the community Facebook page. Anyone else's kid feeling off today? Weird stomach bug going around? He commented on every single post. Told them not to drink the tap water. Told them there was contamination. Told them he'd been trying to warn people for 5 days. They deleted his comments. One person messaged him privately, "Arthur, stop scaring people. My kids are fine." Sunday night, a 7-year-old named Emma Castellano was rushed to the hospital. Acute poisoning. Her parents had given her tap water all week, lots of it, because she'd been complaining about headaches, and they thought she was dehydrated. Monday morning, the county shut down the water system. They tested, confirmed Arthur's findings, evacuated 3 neighborhoods, brought in emergency water supplies. The chemical plant was raided by state inspectors. Turns out they'd been illegally dumping for 8 months, bypassing their treatment systems to save money. The runoff had been slowly contaminating the aquifer. If Arthur hadn't caught it when he did, if he hadn't pushed, if he'd listened when everyone told him to calm down, they estimated 200 people would have been hospitalized within 2 weeks. Maybe deaths. Definitely long-term health effects. Cancers. Organ damage. The kind of thing that destroys a community slowly, invisibly, while everyone wonders why people keep getting sick. The mayor held a press conference, thanked the vigilant staff at the water treatment plant, didn't say Arthur's name, The local news ran a story, interviewed his supervisor, who took credit for maintaining strict protocols. Arthur wasn't mentioned. Emma Castellano recovered. Her parents tried to find out who'd raised the alarm. Eventually, someone told them. They showed up at Arthur's house on a Wednesday evening, knocked on his door. When he answered, Emma's mom just hugged him, didn't say anything for a long time. "You saved her," she finally said. "You saved my baby." Arthur didn't know what to say to that. He'd just been doing his job, doing what anyone should do. Except nobody else had done it. Had they? The chemical plant shut down. Lawsuits. Criminal charges. The company tried to settle quietly. The story made state news for 2 days, then disappeared. Life in Millbrook went back to normal. New water filters. Some payouts. A few people moved away. And Arthur? He still works the night shift. Still runs his tests. Still lives in his grandmother's house. Still invisible. Mostly. Sometimes people recognize him at the store now. A few nods. A few thank yous. But nothing that really changed anything. He doesn't mind. He never did it for recognition. He did it because someone had to. Because the systems we trust only work when someone's actually watching them. And usually, that someone is the person nobody notices. Until everything almost falls apart. Here's what nobody tells you about heroes. They're not the loud ones. They're not the ones who look the part or sound confident or have everyone's respect. Sometimes they're the quiet ones. The ones who care too much. The ones everyone calls paranoid, until the thing they were paranoid about actually happens. The scary part isn't that this happened. The scary part is how easily it could have been missed. If Arthur had taken a sick day, if he had decided to just trust the machine like everyone else, Millbrook would be a very different place today. So, here is the question for you. Who is the Arthur in your life? The quiet person you ignore because they don't demand attention. Maybe it's time to start listening to them. Next video, we're going to talk about a case where nobody listened, and the ending wasn't this lucky. I'll see you there.